Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Pistachio Princess. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister your family isn't responsible for raising your child? My 28 female sister, 44 female, gave birth earlier this year. She has been trying for years and finally got a baby via IVF. She only wanted a baby since her friends told her she will be regretful if she doesn't have a child. Now, she has the child, but my mother, 64, and other sister, 42, have practically raised this child. Stacy doesn't do anything but complain about how exhausting this all is and how she needs a break. I understand it's tiring to be a mom, but you paid for this child? She prayed and prayed and prayed and did endless IVF cycles to have this child. Also, like I said earlier, our mother and other sibling are doing a lot of the child rearing for her. Her husband is a deadbeat and doesn't partake in raising the child. He is never available to look after his kid. She always says he's busy and can't take care of her. So she drops the baby off at my family home 70% of any given month and goes on her merry way. Once, as my mother was babysitting for a week straight, my brother-in-law dropped by in the evening after his child was already asleep just to stare at her and leave. I truly wish I was joking when I say this, but that truly did happen. Brother-in-law thought that showed that he cares for the kid. I laughed uncontrollably since I have never witnessed such a thing before. Like, I'm just alarmed at all of this since I can't fathom going through an IVF cycle to be such crappy parents. Anyway, I constantly tell my sister it's not our mom's, mine, or our other siblings' responsibility to be at your beck and call whenever you don't want to take care of your child. She sees us as free childcare and labor since her husband will not assist with anything. I tell her, your husband's work schedule allows him to be available a lot of the time. Get him to help. God forbid I ever say the father of the child should look after his child. I was scolded by her for that and was told I'm trying to break a happy home. Again, since the baby has been born, she is now 10 months, the majority of the child rearing has been done by our mother and sibling. To add on to this, we purchase many of the items my niece needs as well. My sister only purchases formula, and even when she's running short, I'm usually the one to purchase extras. And then we come to this week. Stacy's going off to another week-long trip and dropping the baby off with our mom. Our mom is extremely tired, but she can't say no to her adult child, so once again she is babysitting. I just don't know how I'm being painted as the villain here for trying to get my mom to start telling her daughter enough is enough. I reiterate, she's 44. She chose to have this baby via IVF with her husband, and for what? There is no return to sender option after giving birth. All this to say, I've reached my upper limit of dealing with her BS and we will be having another argument sooner than later. I just sometimes wonder if I'm in the wrong for being so annoyed. No, Upi, you are absolutely not in the wrong. Your sister and her husband are horrible parents, and I'm pretty sure they didn't necessarily want a baby, they wanted an accessory. And actually, with the way you talk about your brother-in-law, maybe he didn't want the baby at all and your sister just pushed him into doing it. Now, regarding how your sister takes advantage of your mom and your other sister, it doesn't seem like they're willing to do anything about it. Particularly, it sounds like your mom is kind of a people pleaser or an enabler. Either way, there's nothing you can do about that. Unless they want to actively make a change and set their foots down, you won't be able to convince them otherwise. Believe me, I know this story too well. There's only two ways this story can go. Your mom and your sister are gonna keep doing what your other sister wants, and they're gonna complain about it, but not to her, of course. Or maybe someday they'll stand up to her, but I highly doubt the latter will ever happen. So if I was in your shoes, I would take myself out of the equation. I would tell my sister, hey, I love my niece, but I'm not your private childcare, so don't count on me for anything else. And I'd tell my mom and sister one last time, you two are enablers, and you don't get to complain to me about something that you don't want to get out of. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Owl Efficient 9138 says, not the a-hole. Watching your mom get taken advantage of would make anyone upset. And while it sounds like your mom is willing, does she ever complain to you about it? Or did you ask your mom if it's upsetting her? If it is, then it definitely warrants bringing it up with your sister. But if your sister and your mom are happy doing it, then I still wouldn't say you're an a-hole, but maybe a bit out of bounds. And Opie responds, they're always complaining to me about how exhausted they are. I knew it. But since they feel so bad for my niece, they don't say anything to my sister. I'm the one who tells her you're abusing their kindness, but she's always been the selfish one in the family and doesn't care. As long as she gets her way, everything is fine. Crying emoji. Long Jumping Fox 4690 says, sounds like your family need to grow up here and say no. If they drop the baby off again without permission, call the police and say the child has been abandoned. Fred Red Fui says, not the a-hole, but your mom is a grown-up. She is the one who has to say no. You can move out and stop spending money on the kid, but your sister is going to ignore you as long as your mom allows her to walk all over her. Suggest to your mom that she set up a schedule with your sister and start setting boundaries so she gets a break. For example, 3 days a week with the kid, then not open the door to the sister when she ignores this boundary and warn her that the cops will be called if she dumps the baby on the doorstep and leaves. Because she sounds like the kind of person who would do that, but your mom also sounds like she would cave. However, if you stop helping your mom and sister, your mom may hit a breaking point and set boundaries. Alright, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole for calling the sister out, but there's little she can do about her mom and her other sister taking care of the baby if they won't do anything about it. In any case, let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. Spoke to my mom and my other sister. Told them I'm wiping my hands clean off this mess, and if y'all want to continue to enable my sister, be my guest, but I can't deal with this anymore. They took it how I expected, just nonchalant, and said, okay. I know they'll complain to me about how burnt out they are sooner than later, but I'm just gonna block it out. I live at home, so I see the chaos unfold live every time my sister drops niece off for hours on end. But I need to disengage and let them deal with the mess they've created. I told Stacy, you can't always throw "it takes a village to raise a child" as an excuse to make everyone else a surrogate husband for you. Your husband is able-bodied and has extremely flexible work hours. He can easily babysit. It's not babysitting, it's parenting. She said, I am not to get involved in her relationship and he is too busy to babysit. She also said that since the baby is more used to us, it's better she drops her off with us than leave her with her dad. I'll never understand how she believes it's more viable to tell us that she is taking an impromptu weekend trip because she needs a break, so I need you to take time off Friday to babysit, instead of taking her baby with her or asking her husband to babysit. Also, to those saying I should call CPS, I don't want my niece to be in the system. As a black child, I do not want her to be in that situation. But it doesn't hurt to use it as a tactic to get my sister to maybe start acting right. Something's got to give eventually, but I won't call CPS on her. My mom and sister can figure out if they want custody of the baby at this rate. My mom has always been a people pleaser. We are in a small community. Everyone knows each other. Reputation is everything. My mom will do anything to keep our family in good standing, I guess you could say. My sister found this out and she's just had my mom do everything for her entire life. For example, she will host a dinner party and have my mom cook. And my mom will cook so people don't say her daughter is a bad cook because she doesn't want people to say my mom was a bad mom in not teaching her how to cook. I really don't know how to explain this to people. If you didn't grow up in an enmeshed home, this really won't make sense. My other sister helps just to take the load off our mom's back. It's a really bad cycle that needs to end. I hope they figure it out sooner than later for their sake. I'm just over it. It's exhausting watching those you care for being taken advantage of because they were never taught to say no. Also, some of you asked if my sister has PPD. She does not. During all her postpartum appointments, her doctor actually says she's doing great. According to her, of course, but she doesn't have any symptoms or behaviors that would make me believe she has PPD. Her personality and actions haven't changed post-birth. And of course, she is. Everything has been taken care of by her family. My sister was told by her friends that having a kid isn't that hard and the exhaustion is worth it, etc. She was told to have a kid or she'll regret it since a husband won't help her in the future like a child can. It's an investment for retirement. But everyone knows my sister was not built for motherhood. She's already trying to end her maternity leave short so she can go back to work since she says that's more fun and exciting than child rearing. She also constantly says how she wishes her baby was 5 or 6 so that at least they can speak and it'd be more fun. She's experiencing FOMO, fear of missing out, since her friends, according to her, are always hanging out since their families help with the kids. Her friends' kids are in their teens. And she claims she's stuck with a fuzzy baby. Not fuzzy, she just doesn't give her much attention. She's always on her phone. It's just a lot of mess. Others asked about where is the husband's side of the family. Not present. Also, the majority live outside of Canada. The ones who do and live in the same city as us just don't care. They visited my sister once or twice. I know once my mom was unavailable and refused to babysit, so my sister had to take her baby to her sister-in-law. Baby came back with a cold. After that, sister doesn't want to ever drop her baby off at her sister-in-law's home. So honestly, they're just a non-factor. I want a relationship with my niece and I'll still continue to foster such, but I am not babysitting for hours on end or help my family be able to do so more. I'll continue to buy toys and gifts for her when I feel like it, and that's it. Thank you everyone for your input. Wow, OP, I have to say, I really feel sorry for your niece. The fact that she's on this world is due to completely selfish reasons instead of just love. And the fact that your sister had her so she could have help in the future, but she's no help to your mom, it's ironically sad. So hopefully you can keep an eye out for her because her parents are crap. And hopefully one of them or both of them wake up and step up to being a good parent. In the meantime, OP, take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user ThatWitch72. Am I the a-hole for not letting a family member enter pictures I took into a contest under their name? Recently, there was a regional photo contest near my area. However, I wasn't a part of the community that put it on and therefore wasn't eligible to enter. I was completely okay with this as I like to enter other photo contests in my communities, but I digress. I have a family member in that community who asked repeatedly to enter a couple of my pictures from Grand Tetons National Park into the contest under her name so it would be eligible for prizes. I refused because I didn't know the terms of the contest and whether or not the picture became their IP when entered, so I couldn't use it on my own contest. The rest of my family seems to think I'm selfish and that I have dozens of pictures good enough for these contests. And that this family member is just trying to be helpful by putting my photos in more contests. Plus, I don't know what it is. I can't stand the idea of someone else's name on my work. I think I might be the a-hole because I could just let her enter these pictures, take pride in them secretly if they do well, but I'm refusing. Am I the a-hole? No, OP, of course you're not the a-hole. That is your work. The only person who should be able to take credit for them is you and you alone. What a stupid argument. This family member is just trying to be helpful by putting your photos in more contests. Right, with her name. And honestly, the nerve of this family member to ask for your pictures to take credit for them. Of course not, OP. You are not the a-hole. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's check out the community comments. Free Range Chicken says, not the a-hole, it's your work, not theirs. They're not trying to be helpful, they're trying to pass off your work as their own. If you're trying to get your photography out there, you certainly don't want to let them take your work. In the worst case scenario, which I don't know how likely, but just a thought, it somehow gets around that this happened, it could end up with your entries in other places being called into question. DJ 2 Supreme ITA says, not the a-hole. I see this as similar to someone wanting to copy a college essay and use it as their own. This is called plagiarism. People get in serious trouble for plagiarizing work. And OP responds, that's what I said, but my entire family seems to think plagiarism only applies to written work. Curious1 4595 says, not the a-hole. There could be unintended consequences for your work. You would be helping someone cheat. Keep your integrity and your artistic work. And Subarctic Farmer says, not the a-hole. There is no upside, only down. You'd never be able to use those pictures as your own, as they could be recognized by someone in that group and then you would be accused of stealing them. Even if you resolved that, your reputation would be irreparably harmed if it came out you helped someone cheat in a contest. The reward isn't even something you could benefit from. And what do you think will happen if you win? She'll want to use more of your work for the national contest. Be prepared for her to submit it anyway, and if you find out that happened, you need to report it. It isn't to help you, she thinks she can get a claim using your work. So, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, and some of them are even encouraging OP that if she does submit their work, that they need to report it or it could compromise his future work. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. So, I took the advice of a lot of the commenters and told my family I wouldn't allow anyone else to enter my pictures under their name. Then made sure my family member didn't enter my photos without my permission by attending the contest and threatening to report them if they tried. I've also taken to not sending around any of my pictures without a watermark. I used some of the arguments given in the comments to justify my decision, and while my family still didn't agree, they let it go and stopped pressuring me to send them all the original pictures. I know some people suggested I tell the contest organizers, but I didn't think it was worth going that far. Man, I probably should have. So, more recently, one of my aunts also got into photography and sent around a lot of pictures she took on a vacation to New Orleans. Well, my plagiarizing family member took them and entered them into a contest in the local paper, small town, under her own name and won. The picture was featured in the paper and referenced only her as the photographer along with a quote by her. I don't think the rest of us would have even found out about it if my uncle didn't like to read the paper every day. Now, my aunt is angry and so is the rest of the family. I'm kinda curious if they would have reacted this strongly for me, but it doesn't really matter. At least now my family understands why I reacted as strongly as I did. Well, it'll be good for you for standing for your work and shutting her down like you did. The threat of exposure was enough, and good for you for also watermarking your photos. Maybe your aunt should start doing the same thing. Cheaters cheat. That's what they do. Your family member is a cheater. In any case, here's wishing you the best in the future. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Pull of Cheddar. Boss was reluctant to do anything about deadweight coworker because he wasn't making obvious mistakes. We decided to make it obvious. We had this coworker on our team. The best way to describe him is to use a Homer Simpson line. Everyone says they have to work a lot harder when I'm around. Projects given to him usually were not completed correctly, not entirely completed, or not even worked on at all. He violated security protocols, gave out equipment to other departments, and would occasionally disappear for hours. He would always have someone else to blame for his problems, contractors, staff in other departments, but the last straw for the rest of us was when he tried to throw his own team member under the bus. We all knew he was skating by because we'd fix his mistakes to keep everything else running, and admittedly, it's hard to get fired from a state job. But after blaming us and having to hear about it, that was the last straw. So the rest of us on the team stopped helping him, and we stopped fixing his mistakes. He wasn't making obvious mistakes before, now they were obvious. The mistakes were piling up and fast. We would collaborate with him only down to the bare minimum. He had no reason to blame us if our contributions to a project were completed and his weren't. And then came the kiss of death. He took a week off. With him not around, everything that piled up started getting completed by the rest of us. New tasks were completed on top of that, and on time. Even my boss could not ignore the simple fact that the place ran smoother without him around. After he returned, everything started piling back up again. So, we came into work a couple of weeks ago and it was announced that he had left the organization. Not one person was surprised. The thing that amazes me about this whole thing is that nobody coordinated it. None of us hatched a plan. We all just individually decided that enough was enough. You wanted obvious? You got obvious. It is impressive how much it takes to get fired for some people. My last 2 jobs both featured a teammate who essentially collected a paycheck and did nothing in return. At least my manager here had the balls to do what was needed. It's also amazing that in the end, there's less work to do with him gone because tasks don't need to be done twice anymore. Well, OP, I guess we can sum it up to and let the chips fall where they may. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.